Hi, I'm Anne Runolfsson, and if you want to learn a little bit about my unauthorized Hallmark movie musical, watch the rest of this video. Well, how I first fell in love with the theater was a little bit of a surprise. I had been listening to a lot of pop music. We're talking late 70s, maybe mid 70s. And I decided that perhaps I wanted to sing. And so my mom decided that she would take me to my aunt, who was a voice teacher, and she could, analyze me and see if I had any potential before my mom was going to spend any money. And she deemed me worthy of voice lessons, and that, perhaps, I had a voice there. And so in that first lesson, she mentioned that they were having auditions for the show Applause, musical theater show, and suggested that I should go. And so I went to the audition, I got it, and did the show, and that was it. I fell in love with the theater. I didn't even know that it was something that I would love or enjoy doing. I had always enjoyed going. My mom took us to a lot of shows. So that is how I fell in love with the theater. I fell in love with directing, probably, this is a cute story. When my daughter was in elementary school, they were doing a project about France, and I think she was in second or third grade. And I offered to write a piece about the town we lived in, which was Los Alamitos, California. We were living there at the time, and incorporate like this idea of a French kid moving to Los Alamitos and wanting to know what the history of the town was. So somehow all these things came together for me. I wrote this piece for her class. They performed it. The mayor came. So it was the first time I'd really been on the other side. And I know it's like low stakes, but it was fun to create something and to sit on the other side. And I guess maybe there were also moments of that too, that when I was working on the show Victor Victoria on Broadway, my job was to stand by for Julie Andrews. And one of the great parts about being a standby is that you sit and watch everything happen. You're part of the process. And so often I would find myself sitting next to Blake Edwards and hearing him talk about what he wanted to do directorially. And then he'd even turn to me and he'd say like, well, what would you do? What do you think? And I want to say that like prior to that point, I hadn't really given direction any sort of a thought in terms of my own career, but that was just an indicator of sitting back and watching and realizing I did have an opinion about how it was done, and realizing I had thoughts about how it could be better. And so I would say that transmuted into an obsession more recently, working on my unauthorized Hallmark movie musical, which is really the first show that I'm directing in any sort of a larger public way. Just being involved in the process from the idea, frankly, to where we are now, which is a production opening in Los Angeles the first week of December, and watching it come to life and then structuring the story so that it is being told as well as possible. And that really interests me. So I would say that's where it becomes an obsession. The reason the theater experience is so unique, and I think in particular in today's world, is that it's a community. It's a group of people coming together. It's a team sport, theater. We all have to be wanting to tell the same story or agreeing that we're telling the same story. And the collaboration that is essential in terms of telling that story and bringing humans together to work together, to be on the same page, step out on the stage, have the same commitment to giving an audience a reason to be in a space and perhaps change their mind about something, perhaps just delight them, perhaps, but give them an experience that is live and in 3D and not virtual and not watching your television. There's nothing like it. There is nothing like the live feeling of creating something on a stage and having then a partner of an audience. And like once the audience piles in, so now it's not just the actors on stage telling the story. We've now got another entity that is equally as important. And now the team sport went from being us on a stage to everyone who just stepped into the theater because we're all agreeing to be in the same space. It's sacred to me. It's church. My process in creating and directing a play is all about story. It's about taking a journey with the story. It's about why is that important now? Why do we want to have this information now or have this experience now? I'm very, very interested in my actors, again, like bringing them all together to tell that same story in a way that will have resonance with an audience, but also where this piece of theater taps into the larger zeitgeist. It's like, so why is this important? Because it should be important if we're going to agree to be in a theater together. But I love getting at that. I mean, the human condition is so complex. And that's what we do. We explore that human condition and all of its flaws and foibles and amazingness and potentials and possibilities. And so it's everything. It has the potential to embrace everything. I heard about the P3 Theater Company in the process of putting this show together. Eloise, who is the writer and composer and actress, she and John Peterson, who is the head of P3 Theater Company, were connected, and they mutually agreed that putting on the show would be a good idea. So that was how I was introduced to P3 Theater Company. Of course, I did my homework, wanting to know who are they and what have they done. And I would say that what intrigued me the most is that John Peterson literally puts himself on the line to bring wonderful theater to the audiences of Southern California. I'm from Southern California, and I'm from the Long Beach area, so I identify with sort of the roots of this theater. I also work with an actress who has worked for this theater company a couple of times, and I know she's had very positive experiences. And that's what my experience has been so far, is that we're in great shape, and I feel like we're in very good hands, and competency and enthusiasm and all the things that you would want from a theater company and a producing partner. I heard about my unauthorized Hallmark movie musical when Eloise and I, who've been working together for years on various projects, she mentioned an idea that she had. This was during the pandemic, during quarantine and shut down. And Eloise says, I have this idea and I'm thinking of writing this piece. And I said, wow, what a great, that's an incredible idea. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I think that, you know, go. And so she did. It was amazing to watch her plow through, because there were a lot of pieces that had to happen in order to bring this piece of theater to life. Meanwhile, during the pandemic. So I would say that I had to direct this piece once I was in a certain, I was in, like, to a certain degree already. I was helping with some of the music stuff, and, you know, just helping Eloise with some of the dramaturgical stuff on the play. And, you know, one thing unraveled into the next, and then it was time for the play to go live. The movie had been made, and now it's time for her to get on stage. And honestly, other than Eloise, I would say I was the second person who probably knew the work the best, because I had been involved since the beginning. And so she suggested that it might make sense for me to direct it. And, you know, it was a no-brainer. I thought, yeah, absolutely, I've got to see this through, and I want to watch the audiences have a great time, and I want to see this dream happen for Eloise, because it's an extraordinary story. My unauthorized Hallmark movie musical is a story of a woman who believes in the power of love. It's a story of a woman who currently does not have that type of love in her life, but she holds dear this idea that love is everything. And she's in a pandemic, and she spends a lot of her time watching Hallmark movies, and decides that perhaps it might be fun, because she's also a writer, to write her own Hallmark movie and make it a musical, because she loves musicals. And in the process of writing this story, she takes a journey with herself, and getting to know herself even greater, and finding the courage to step outside of perhaps her current thinking of this very positive belief in this idea of love, but then actually having to face, like, yes, but I want that in my life. And she writes it for these characters in the movie, and steps into this new place, has this incredible evolution of self in the process of writing this movie. So the way it happens is that there is a movie that takes place on 3 screens behind the actress on stage, Eloise, and that was all shot during the pandemic. There are 8 characters in the film. So here are all these actors in the film behind her. At times they interact with our heroine of Eloise. And so it's a very different type of theater going experience. It's not just that one person show. It's not simply a play, but it is a play that takes into consideration really the magnitude of what screens do in our life as well. So not only is she creating the story, but she creates it as a movie on these screens behind her, and that movie actually helps her break through to a new place in her own life. So it's very original in terms of the concept. And that was something that was very, very interesting to me, and it's still a lot of fun to play with. So the movie that she's creating is, again, it's a Hallmark movie musical. So we have all of the wonderful Hallmark tropes. And I have to say that there are a lot of closeted Hallmark movie watchers out there, alongside with the gigantic audience of people who openly and unabashedly embrace watching Hallmark movies. But I've had friends tell me, when I've spoken about this project, they'd say, you may not repeat this to anyone, but I watch those movies constantly. And even I was not really a Hallmark fan prior to this experience. I wasn't something I sought out, but I recently had a little stomach virus and just did not feel well. And I think I watched 5 of it was the perfect thing. So I have this whole new appreciation. But what happens on the screens behind her is a Hallmark movie musical with all the tropes, all of the tropes that one would expect. We know there's going to be a happy ending, but how they get there, we don't know. And that's what we count on. We count on watching it, and nothing too terrible is ever going to happen. And we know that at the end, these characters are going to end up in love and, happy. I like Eloise's writing. I love it because there's a fearlessness to it. There is also, it has to be, these are stories that have to be told by her. Ever since I've known her, I've watched her really begin or re-begin her life as a writer. And, I've watched a number and read a number of things that she's written, and each piece just goes deeper and deeper and deeper. And there's always some inspiration that leads her to start her process. And she dives in with such courage and dedication. And then I get to watch the story unfold and see how she goes back and tweaks it and makes it better and puts the puzzle together more in a way that is more theatrical. Her commitment to the process is very inspirational. And she's also an incredible collaborator. So she's very interested in the collaboration of how do we tell this story maybe a little more clearly. And there's, the ego around it is not, it's like the perfect size ego. It's like you need to have that to be an artist, but you also need to be able to lay that back so that you can have that collaboration and get into the use of your words, the development of your characters. And she's very, very open to that process. So I think that's, those are many of the reasons why I love working with her as a writer and why I enjoy reading her writing. I want and hope that what the audience takes away from my unauthorized Hallmark movie musical is a sense of joy, a feeling of joy, a feeling of possibility, a feeling of that deeper belief in oneself that leads to those possibilities becoming realities. That the audience walks away with the idea that there is a courageous human inside of them, if they just allow that to have some space. And, perhaps they walk away thinking about what would be my Hallmark movie? I think that's a fun question. And to say like, well, okay, what if I were the central character, what would it be? And what would I want to tell myself? What would I want to learn from that? So I think it's an audience walking away with, in a playground of those, of scenarios that perhaps they hadn't painted for themselves. And not to mention that the woman who created all of this decided to do it during the pandemic. So wow, that's inspiring. She had this idea, wrote the book, wrote the music and lyrics, had a composer collaborator on some of that, and then went into a recording studio, recorded all the tracks, made a film, right? And then had a play produced. It's an extraordinary story. And so, gosh, if the audience walks away inspired by that too, home run. That's just another like icing on the cake. I'm looking forward to seeing the audience as I'm watching this musical. What I'm most looking forward to is seeing how our audience reacts. I'm looking forward to seeing the technical elements come together because we've had very little time with that, and because it's in its scope, it's there's a lot going on with her interactions with these films. So the magic, I'm looking forward to witnessing the magic of that. I'm looking forward to taking the journey of this character and, arriving with her at this moment of triumph. But mostly I would say it's just, I'm looking forward to that collaboration I was talking about earlier between audience and actors. That energy that is so delicious that I crave. Like if there's, my drug in the theater, then it would be that. And so being a part of the audience and then having known that I was a piece of this will be a lot of fun to settle in with that too. Audience should flock to see my unauthorized Hallmark movie musical because it's an evening or an afternoon of escape, of fantasy becoming reality, of creativity, of great music, great story. You're spending an afternoon with a woman in her home as she unpacks all of this. And so this is a great opportunity to go to the theater, know you're going to have fun, know that it's going to have that happy ending. And, I can't recommend it enough. It's a wonderful, I was going to say diversion, but it's not even about it being a diversion, but it is like that hour and a half where you're not going to think about anything else. And you're going to walk out tapping your toe and feeling very, very happy. I believe that actors, playwrights, directors getting involved with the P3 theater company is just a great idea. It's a smart idea. It's a small, nurturing theater company that at its heart wants to bring great stories to the stage and is willing to do the work that's necessary for that to happen. So if you are someone who lives in the area or works within this area where they're active, what a great opportunity to align yourself with someone who takes chances and someone who is very prolific in their content. And I think, many theater companies start and quickly end. P3 has been going for quite a while now. They're here to stay. I can't imagine a better place for someone to get involved if this is a passion and something that they seriously want to be participating in. Theaters like P3 are very, very important in communities because they provide a place for people within the community to come together to have a shared experience. And as a community, it's very important for us to continue to support these theater companies like P3, arts organizations that are daring to step forward and make these afternoons and evenings available to us as audience members. Because I believe that it is when we all step into that theater together, there is something magical that happens. And there are few places where that magic happens between us these days. It's very easy for us to get sort of isolated in our homes and on our computers and, or deal with each other virtually. But to be live together is imperative in terms of our species. And, so a place like P3 deserves all of the community attention and support that it can get, so that we can continue to have these shared experiences. My name is Anne Runolfsson. I am the director of my unauthorized Hallmark movie musical. And boy, do I hope that you will come see the show. Visit lovealwayswinsmusical.com. We're running for 3 weekends at the Broadwater Theatre, and you are going to have a wonderful, wonderful time. We can't wait to see you there and have this experience together.